Hello Internet, my name's Lave, and this week I watched Bleed for This, which is yet another boxing drama biography. This one is written and directed by Ben Younger, whose other work I'm not familiar with, so let's move on. Here he's telling the story of Vincent Pazienza, who was a junior welterweight boxing champion in the 80s, who went up a couple of weight divisions to become the welterweight champion, and then unfortunately he got into a car accident and broke his neck, but despite this, the crazy bastard continued to train and went on to defend his title. The Paz man is played by Miles Teller. Now, although he's not a spitting image of the real Vinny, he does do a really good job of capturing his personality and mannerisms. I know this because they interspersed real pictures and footage of the real Vinny throughout the film and in the end credits, and Miles Teller really does sound like the guy. He's obviously put in the work in the gym and it does look like he can box. Now, I didn't think that I was going to, but I actually really liked his character. He is really arrogant and overconfident when we first meet him, but he's also quite a funny guy and he does have some morals. They make a point of saying that he doesn't do drugs or drink. His only vice is that he has a couple of trophy birds and he likes to gamble every now and again. But as the film progressed, I was won over by his determination. He is a likeable but maybe an unreliable rogue. Teller is supported by an equally good performance by Aaron Eckhart playing Kevin Rooney, the one-time trainer of Mike Tyson. He's a bit washed up now and is battling with alcoholism. Vinny's management team have just sent Vinny there to kind of keep him out of the way, so Rooney reluctantly begins to train him, and he's actually the one who suggests he goes up a couple of weight divisions and gets his fighting spirit back. And it's their relationship and friendship that develops before and after the accident that forms the real focus of this film's narrative, and I do think that that part of it works really well, in no small part due to Teller and Eckhart's chemistry, which is really good. On a side note, I did wonder if the makers of this film approached Clark Gregg to maybe play Rooney again, because he did play him in the underwhelming Tyson film. That could have been interesting, but I'm not taking anything away from Aaron Eckhart's performance. It is really good. There are some other characters in the mix. I really like Ciarán Hinds as Vinny's dad. I wish they'd explored their relationship a little bit more. They do touch on it, but they don't go into great depth. You've also got the rest of Vinny's family who are just floating around in the background and never really engage with the plot. And then you've got an unrecognisable Ted Levine as Vinny's manager, who, along with his business partner, comes across as a bit cliched and a bit pantomimed. They don't really care for Vinny, they're just interested in the money. And speaking of cliches, I think that's where this film does stutter. It is full of all of the other tropes that we recognise from every other boxing film, but I wouldn't say that they tackle it as skillfully as, say, Ryan Coogler did in Creed. I don't want to take anything away from the real story, which is undeniably a great and inspiring comeback story, but I feel that Ben Younger has taken this great story and just told it in an incredibly formulaic way. I just wish he'd taken a bit more creative license to maybe explore some of the side characters, and certainly I wished he'd pushed himself when it came to the boxing sequences, which really don't offer anything new. Speaking of Creed, I can't help but think of that fantastic sequence which appears to take place in one shot, and even going back to Michael Mann's Ali, which has some really interesting POV shots from the fighter's perspective. That's just visually interesting. Now, I'm not saying that the cinematography and the fight choreography is bad in this. It just feels like it's been copy and pasted from every other boxing film, particularly the Rocky franchise, which I definitely think this is trying to ape in terms of its visuals and its tone. The only interesting thing that Younger did try and do is insert this real footage, which, as I say, I'm not sure entirely worked, because I thought it was quite obvious when it was the real footage and when it was Miles Teller. They just don't really look alike. Having said all that, I do think that they do handle certain scenes very well. The car crash scene, for example, is very good, and I really like the scenes when he's getting his halo neck brace thing installed and removed. It's really incredibly painful to watch. But as I say, the rest of the film feels incredibly formulaic and safe. I'm not sure if they've done the real story great justice. It feels like a good boxing film when it should have been a great boxing film. So that's my thoughts on Bleed for This, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. I do find it really interesting that Martin Scorsese was a producer on this. My instant connection to that is obviously Raging Bull. I don't think that that's a coincidence, but interestingly, it's not aping Raging Bull at all. It doesn't have any of its grit. I do think that it's taking a lot of visual cues and tones from Rocky, but I don't think it quite has the heart of the Rocky films, which is a shame because this is a real story. If I was going to rank it and compare it to other recent boxing films, I think this is actually better than Southpaw, but I don't think it quite reaches the heights of, say, The Fighter, and definitely not Creed. So thanks very much for watching my review. I really do appreciate it. If you've seen Bleed for This, tell me what you thought about it. Where does it compare in the other boxing films that you've seen? Tell me in the comments. And if you like this video, please give it a like and don't forget to share the Lave. Subscribe.